Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the special roundtable discussion on India Urban Data Exchange Program. India Data Exchange Program is a transformative initiative of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, to provide a data exchange platform to Indian cities. Shortly, IUDX serves as a seamless interface for data providers and data users, including urban local bodies, to share, request, access data sets related to cities, urban governance, urban service delivery. The platform has been developed by the Smart City Mission under Government of India, is implemented by Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru. The IUDX program is completely open source based on an underlying framework of open standards, APIs, data models, and security, privacy, and accounting mechanism that will facilitate its easy adoption across the digital ecosystem. To join the panel discussion, I'm pleased to invite Dr. Inder Gopal, Chief Executive Officer, IUDX, and also an industry professor at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. So welcome to the discussion.
Thank you.
My next guest is Dr. Abhay Sharma, Vice President for Development, part of the IUDX program. Mr. Dr. Abhay, please welcome to the discussion. My third guest is Mr. Suresh Kumar, Vice President, Development of the same IUDX program. Last but not the least, I'm pleased to invite Mr. Rahul Kapoor, Director, Smart City Mission, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. Sir, I'll go to Dr. Inder first. My first question to you, sir. I mean, this project is very significant project for not only for Indian Institute of Science, but at the same time, it is very important for the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. What is the mandate of this program? Who are the key stakeholders of this organization? If you can please, sir.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. So let me give a little bit of a history. It'll lead into the answer the question that you have. About 3 years ago, we were doing a lot of work in Indian Institute of Science on some of the underlying technology related to sharing of data, right? Security and interoperability and so forth in sharing of data. And at that time, we met with Mr. Kumar and Mr. Rahul Kapoor from Smart City Mission. And they said, hey, this is exactly the problem we have. In smart cities, we have so much data, all kinds of different data from sensors, from databases, from legal records, utility records, all kinds of things, crime records. And the problem is that we do not have an effective way of sharing that data to really create applications and services that can benefit from that data, right? So we said, okay, let us try to work on this problem jointly. And we put in place initially a research project for 1 year that the ministry funded in Indian Institute of Science to develop some of the core ideas and do a pilot. And we did a pilot in the city of Pune. And we showed that actually, this concept of a data exchange, right, which is something that we evolved, is actually an extremely important platform that can enable data to be used and shared effectively within cities. So that is essentially what we built. So what a data exchange does basically is it allows the data, if you have all kinds of data. So for example, let's say the police department has data, the fire department, the hospital system, all different municipality, they all have data. And you want to create an application that uses data from all these different places. First, you have to know what data is available in the system. What is the data that you need a catalog of data. Like you go into a library, for example, you need to know what are the books that are in the library, right? So you need a library catalog. So that is one big aspect of the data exchange. Another thing is when the data is not all open data. Some of the data is quite valuable, right? You want to protect the data. You want to limit who can get access to the data. In order to maximize the amount of data that's there, you want to actually have mechanisms that can control who can get access to the data. So controlling the access, making sure that only the people who are authorized to get access can get access. The whole security infrastructure, security and privacy infrastructure of the data is a very important part of this. And then finally, the whole question is the data is represented in very different formats, right? So if you have, for example, say different vendors, say, let's say you have data from the streetlights, just as an example, right? Streetlight, you think very simple, what data can you have from a smart streetlight? You can have, is the streetlight on, is it off? What is the brightness of the light? But the thing is, this can be represented in very different ways. So if you're getting data from, say, a Bajaj streetlight, it may look very different than the data you're getting from a Philips streetlight, right? Even though the data represents the same thing, right? So one of the things that data exchange does is it normalizes the data, makes it all appear the same. So the differences between the vendors, all that is taken away, and it comes through a standard interface, standard APIs, so the application developer can create applications. So our mandate really, when you ask what is our mandate, it is to make data that is available within the cities usable by application developers and by startups and by the city to be able to develop applications that can be value and benefit the citizens. That's fundamentally what we have done.
Thank you, Doctor. I'll go to Dr. Abhay Sharma. A digital platform, the importance of digital platform can be counted in 3 areas. One is the leadership, one is the kind of the architecture that we are creating. Third is whom we are creating, what is the user base for us. I think leadership is in place. I would like to know from you, how unique is the technology architecture of this program? And which are the parameters that you have kept in mind before developing this program? If you can just highlight on the architecture part, please.
Thank you. I would like to just start with, before we discuss the architecture, let's discuss a little bit about the motivation. And Inder has just mentioned that in passing. I would just spend a couple of more minutes on some of these things. So it was fairly clear that the value of data, right? And this is not just the case for Indian cities, actually worldwide, the value of data which these cities are producing, this enormous amount of data, is not getting fully realized, right? And there are many reasons for it. They are stuck in silos, the data is not usable. And why is it not usable? There are various reasons for it. This is not even interoperable data, although in the same ecosystem going from one place to another, it stops being usable, right? And a key reason for that was that the interfaces and the data formats were not standardized. So what happens when these are not standardized, right? So one of the big thing is the extensibility of IT systems. When you put an IT system on top of this data, right, the extensibility goes for a toss because formats are not really standardized, right? And so when one vendor, instead of one vendor application, you want to use another vendor's application, that's it, you cannot use it. There's a lot of effort to move, right? Similarly, it inhibits a proper ecosystem of solution developers, application developers to come around, right? And finally, it prevents the economies of scale, right? Which is required to solve the problems of our cities, right? The problems are huge. You can't have 1 or 2 people solving these problems, right? So essentially, all this was leading that data's value was not. And IUDX was thought to actually break this, right? Break the silos. And basically, the approach we took was simple in terms of defining the architecture. We defined the stakeholders. We defined 2 stakeholders, which is data providers and data consumers. We keep things simple, right? And we said, what will these people want to do? Once we've decided that these people would like to do the following things as to make the seamless data exchange in a very easy fashion, right? While with the standard data formats access, then we decided some of the very key design principles. And that is what makes our architecture a little bit unique because we will strictly adhere to these design principles. We'll stay with that. And some of the design principles which we mentioned, open APIs and standards, we'll always have open APIs. These are also standardized, published standards. The second very important thing for us is that it's not open data, it's a consent-driven data, right? A provider of a data reserves the rights, right? Reserves to who it provides authorizations to use the data. It's as opposed to open data. Because what we've found is nobody cares for open data. You give the data and then you forget about it. But if you are the one who's responsible for the data, you are the ones who makes decision who gets to use the data, you care more for it. So that is where we went for consent-driven data sharing, and that is slightly different from what we have seen in general public exchanges, right? Other than that, very strict adherence to some other implementation principle makes it a challenging as well as, I think, a unique thing, like secure by design. We built it for scalability. It's not an afterthought. Right from the beginning, everything has been thought to scale up because, again, as you know, cities, the data will be huge, right? And then a lot of other very such principles, like we are technology agnostic, not wedded to a given technology, right? I mean, not wedded to a given platform, not wedded to a given programming, right? It's a technology agnostic platform. Similarly, it's cloud first and open source, right? So we are going for open source, and why it's important, like, see, open source helps a lot of things, right? It helps build trust because it's open source. It helps improve adaptability, as well as finally it brings in a lot more participation, right? So these are the principles and adherence, strict adherence. This makes the IUDX architecture unique. And one last thing I would like to mention is that how we came up with the architecture is also good, in the sense a lot of good things happen because we did it in a very collaborative fashion, right? We built this along with academia, with active participation for other universities, with industry, with government organizations, and other stakeholders like civic communities sometimes, right? Because we wanted to not lose out any perspective as far as data exchange is concerned. So these are the things I feel, and that we have done a little uniquely, and which has sort of taken it into a trajectory which makes it unique.
Thank you, Doctor. I'll go to Mr. Suresh. Suresh, just highlight us, how do urban local bodies benefit from this program? What is the size of size of the users currently that the program holds? If you can highlight, please.
Sure, thank you. So actually, Abhay has mentioned about the platform, and what we do is we take the platform and deploy. Deploy means it actually is a cloud platform. So when we say that, we create an instance of the platform with the data sets of that, for example, a particular urban ULB. And you will see data sets varying from street lights to traffic to transport to parking to safety security, including video camera feeds. And all kind of data sets are there. And the intention of bringing these data sets is to solve a specific problem for that city. So if you look at a RFP of a smart city program, or any mega IoT program like a smart city program, you will see that it will find such that it will solve a solid waste management problem. It will solve a transport problem, because that itself is so huge. So and because of that, this data also basically will be accessible only to that particular platform only, or particular application only. So now that is the fundamental idea of basically digitizing a manual work in a city, or a digitization of a particular application. Now the data is available, and data of not only this particular application, solid waste management data will also, if you correlate with the traffic data, also with the citizen grievances data, then you can prioritize rather than a regular route. How do you basically going to pick up the solid waste of so-and-so pickup point, maybe on priority, so that the waste does not get scattered and things like that. So what happens in the smart city program is it digitizes the manual activity of an application, where IUDX bring all kind of data sets, and it gives an opportunity to create AI ML applications on top of that, which is without any sensors, without additional cameras, without additional compute. Any private company can take the data and create an application like, I am going to prioritize the solid waste pickup for you like this. And that is going to actually impact, I would say, maybe some 100% of the citizens itself. Maybe if you want to reduce, maybe 100 may not be possible. It basically impacts the majority of the citizens. And from a cleaner city point of view, and any such intervention, AI/ML intervention or a application on top of such a data, it typically creates an efficiency, an operational efficiency of around some 15 to 20%. Means if you have a solid waste pickup and budget of around, for example, 40 crores for a smaller city, we are talking about, 8 to 10 crores of a operational efficiency in the form of cash coming actually only from using the data and doing an optimization on top of it. And of course, intangible benefits are the trucks are not going to run around all the place, less pollution, less traffic, prioritize solid waste pickup. So citizens are benefited, urban bodies are benefited from an efficiency point of view, and from a cleaner city point of view, the whole city is benefited. So that is how it is actually, we cannot imagine any party which is not benefited. It's actually a win-win for all. Private player who is building the application to ULB, to citizens, to everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Suresh.
Thank you.
Mr. Rahul, welcome to the discussion. My first question, Rahul, since you had the smart city mission, how significant is the IUDX program for the smart city mission is concerned, and its key stakeholders, if you can highlight, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Radhakrishna. Indeed, a great opportunity to basically put forth my views. If you look at it, when the Smart Cities mission was first launched in 2015, and after that, a lot of discussions started taking place on what a smart city is, about deployment of technologies, and the kind of investments that the cities were looking at for the first time, and specifically the 100 smart cities, which were supposed to create really demonstrable projects that could be tested out once the benefits are realized and how they can be scaled up. So that was the idea and objective of the Smart Cities mission in the first place. And when all these technology projects, such as the integrated command and control centers, the ITMS for traffic management or environmental sensors getting deployed in the cities, it led to a lot of generation of data, and data being the new oil, as we say. So the idea was to make best use of this data and to allow seamless exchange of data to take place so as to realize the collaborative power of data management. However, of course, if you look at the evolution of how data evolves and how the strategy of data management evolves, it starts with open data. So as a government, we started with the open data portal of the Government of India, which is run by METI. We created a separate instance for the Smart Cities mission in the open data portal. The natural evolution from open data would be to have an urban data exchange or to have a data exchange. And why is it necessitated? Because many a times there is a certain amount of data that the various stakeholders or the owners of data are holding, which cannot be very easily shared, being of, let us say, confidential in nature, or it may be having some kind of commercial value, maybe some kind of a trade secret, and a lot of stakeholders who work with the government. So many of the projects that get deployed in the government are owned, operated by maybe a Cisco or maybe a private company, and they would have their own hesitance or resistance to sharing their own proprietary data or data ecosystem. So they would like to keep it access control. So there was a need to have a very access control system that allows seamless data exchange to take place. And that was why the IUDX program became so significant for us. The thing is that we could have let the ecosystem evolve its own kind of an exchange. However, that has its own set of challenges. What you need is a trusted platform. And sometimes we give this example of, let us say, if UPI was built by, let us say, a few banks, then how much of buy-in would be there, how much of trust would be there. And that's why the need for having an independent agency to actually run this exchange that does not store data. The data ownership continues to vest with the owners, and also the storage also is not compromised in any way, but it creates the secured standard way of exchange to take place. It creates a platform where you can do data discovery, you can standardize the overall data ecosystem in cities. So that's the benefit of this kind of an exchange also. If you look at the benefit that goes to the stakeholders, starting from discoverability of data. Today, if you start looking at data which is there with the cities, so you'll have to first find out which cities portal you need to go to. So here's a centralized place where you can actually look into those catalogs. Data becomes fairly standardized. So you know that a major drain on resources is, of course, heterogeneity today, which this system tries to address. Becoming more access controlled, and of course, it allows innovation to take place, because here now you do have a mechanism to get into a dialogue with the owner of data and get into an exchange. As some of the examples which my colleagues here in the panel would be talking about, probably the way two agencies having two different unique vendor ecosystems were able to talk to each other just because a data exchange layer was created. And with distribution of data, that instead of a centralized control or storage of data, Here, the data is decentralized, it is distributed, it is not stored at one particular place, but it allows seamless exchange. So fundamentally, this is what the IUDX program does. It creates the right kind of standards and it creates an enabling platform for data exchange to take place, thereby benefiting all the significant stakeholders. So be it the city administration, which has reduced cost of development and faster deployment of solutions due to collaborative power of data, reduced cost of operations. The data providers, because now they have an access control way of exchanging data with each other. The whole industry ecosystem benefits. The system of app developers and the innovators, the academic and research institutions who do want to have a overall holistic bird's eye view of what all data is available in the urban sector. And of course, eventually the citizens through innovative and cheaper applications, service and conveniences. There's several benefits that the IUDX program basically gives to the urban ecosystem, and that's why it's so important for the ministry. Thank you, Dr. Radhakrishna.
Yeah, one supplement question to Mr. Rahul. June 15th, 2022, Smart City mission perhaps officially completes 5 years. By then, all the smart cities were suggested, requested, asked to complete their respective projects on time. Keeping this deadline in mind for the projects, IUDX roadmap, alignment of ULBs, do you see it will continue even beyond 22 June 15 also?
So the mission actually has had a completion period of June 2023, considering that 5 years of implementation, because the selection of cities was happening in a phased manner, with the last city getting selected in June 2018. So accordingly, June 2023 is when all the 100 smart cities will complete 5 years. The program is divided into phases, wherein this second phase of deployment gets over by 2022. And after that, the third phase of the program will initiate. See, the exchange is actually not a product of the smart cities mission. It is basically an exchange that, starting off with the urban ecosystem, is going to be an exchange layer of maybe the entire country, or maybe even globally it is going to get adopted. Considering the fact that how the various government departments like MeitY has mentioned the IUDX in its note document, which is the National Open Digital Ecosystem white paper. And similarly, the full support of NITI Aayog, which is there for this program. I have a very strong thing that the support and the need for this platform is tremendous and immense. And the scalability, the development of this program, I do not see any hindrance of even beyond the smart cities mission, because the urban sector continues, and so does the need for a data exchange.
Thank you, Mr. Rahul. I'll just go to Dr. Inder Gopal. Sir, you bring enormous value to the program with your great experience outside in India. My question to you, sir, are you happy with the progress that so far the program has done and its objectives met? And how do you see the roadmap for this platform as we move on?
I am very happy with the progress so far. I feel very excited about what we have accomplished so far. If you look, we started initially conceptualizing this idea, right, about in 2019. That was the initial conception, right? And from then we have built, the platform, we have built the technology, and we have deployed the technology in something like 18 cities right now, right? And we have created a whole bunch of use cases, right? A whole bunch of actually extremely exciting, innovative applications that are using data, right? That have started to bring benefit to citizens. Now, admittedly, there's still a long way to go, right? And I think, as Rahul said, our expectation is that we will this is infrastructure that we're developing that hopefully will become long-term infrastructure for the country, right? We are not doing this as a short-term experiment that we do for 2 years and then we go off and do something else. This is something we believe really needs to be there for the long term, and therefore partners that are building applications, services on this need to feel comfortable that this is infrastructure that they can create some a lot of the, especially the private players, are doing it with some, expectation there will be commercial benefit, that they will do this and they will get some commercial benefit. They have to have some confidence that there is stability to this platform, right? And I think, hopefully with the support of MoHUA and the other ministries, we will bring this to something that can become a standard, not just within the urban sector, but also within some of the other sectors that need this kind of technology, right? So I'm extremely excited about what we have accomplished. I believe that we are still at the early stages of this. I think we have shown a lot of the value, but we have not realized the benefit, right? So as an example, right? We have, I think Suresh was talking about the solid waste management application that we have created, right? This application has been created. Data has come from many different places. The application has been developed by a private partner, right? A private company that was partnering with us. We have done a pilot within the city of Varanasi, right? Which is actually an extremely good use case, because what we have been able to demonstrate is we can reduce the cost by about 30% of the operation of the system within the city of Varanasi. Now the question is to go from a pilot deployment to a full-scale commercial deployment within Varanasi, right? Then we have to take what is done in Varanasi, move it to Surat, move it to Gopal, move it to Bhubaneswar, move it to all the other cities. So there's a lot of work ahead of us, But I think what we have done is we have sown the seeds of this, right? We have shown how data can be effectively used. And, teaming with the Smart City mission, we have really brought forward, I think, some very important use cases in the area of public transit, in the area of solid waste management, in the area of air pollution, in the area of flood management, in the area of safety. All of these, if you look at the IUDX deployments, you will see extremely interesting, innovative, valuable applications that have been created using data in these different areas that have really contributed and can contribute significantly more to the benefit of citizens within those cities.
Thank you, Doctor. I'll go to Dr. Abhay Sharma. See, India has of course luckily have many digital platforms. COVID vaccine is one digital platform. Aadhaar is another platform. GSTN is another platform. The government of India is trying to give these digital platforms to give it to the friendly countries to use this platform for their citizen purpose and government purpose. My question to you is, Dr. Abhay, of course, the best brains develop the best platform. Two questions to you. Do we have any prerequisites for the users to join the program? Your users means your ULBs, urban local bodies. Second is, after some time, once the platform gets maturity, satisfied results by internally and the government of India, do you see that any opportunity that this platform also can be used a country where the Indian system similar to kind of existing, and this platform can help them for the local government, local bodies, maybe in a small or big, doesn't matter. Is there any such thought process going on in the key people in your minds?
I think I'll take that first. The one about how easy is it for the users to participate or users to get on the platform. So basically, we have two class of users, and it is actually very easy for both of them to use the platform. Essentially, that is also one of the design principles, right? Ease of use. And basically, there are few interactions defined for both the data. There are two stakeholders, providers and consumers. So if you have data and you wish to exchange data, which could be like a urban local body, right? If you have data and you wish to exchange it, it's very easy for you to come onto the platform. And it is based on all, as I said, open APIs, well-published open APIs. And in fact, as we will achieve maturity, we will go to more and more abstract or whatever user-friendly ways of getting onboarded and stuff like that. But if you have data and you wish to onboard the data, make information about it accessible and authorize others to use it, it is very easy, and it is all based on, as I said, standard published API. Similarly, for a consumer, very powerful APIs exist to search the data. So if you are an analytics provider, you have a nice app, you have some expertise in providing insights based on data, all you have to do is use these few APIs to search the data that you want. And if you're interested in that data, start getting that data and build your application and provide these insights. So that was the first question, how easy is it? It is really easy, and we have provided a lot of thought about it. Now, the second question is again from the point of view of, again, usability of what we have done by others, right? Like, so supposing you say somebody else wants to set up the same platform, right? So again, it is extremely easy to do that, and we already have, again, we have thought about it before, and in fact there have been pilots where somebody else wants to take that up, set up a quick instance of the exchange. It's not IUDX, or it's not in urban context, but in another context. We have automated scripts. We have, again, there has been a thought about this before, that it should be very easy to use, very easy to deploy and monitor, and hence, I mean, again, and since it is based on more like a lot of open source components, and our contribution is also open source, it's very easy for people to actually take it and then use it. And on top, we have spent effort to standardize all this stuff and align it wherever there are standards. So again, if some want to take it to another country, want to take it to another ecosystem, I think it is fairly easy.
Thank you, Doctor. I'll go to Mr. Suresh. Suresh, generally, local governments or local government body agencies are not very friendly with outside agencies or academia. They are more concerned about within the system. So that is what the democracy we have seen last 75 years. So aligning with the external agency or institution, despite the fact that Government of India is supporting a big program, alignment is sometimes a lot of challenges will be there. So I just want you to just talk on the challenges that you have faced by bringing these ULBs onto the platform. And is it a mandatory that all ULBs should share the data using the program?
Yeah, I think great question. Actually, in your question, there are many great questions. So let me see whether I can address all of them. First thing is, whether it is mandatory for ULBs to use it. Actually not, because as Abhay mentioned, the technology of IUDX is so simple. And that way, many times I believe that by being in the technology field for more than 3 decades now, making something simple, especially an electronic platform, it is extremely hard. So that way, if it has to go and sit in a city and then disrupt the existing connections and then put there, and then we start sharing data, you can imagine that it's not going to happen, because private players are operating on a contract in that city. We cannot rapture their connection because all their payments depends upon what their service level agreements and what they are supposed to do. So that way, IUDX come and quietly sit in a city without anybody noticing, and the parallel connections are made. As you already heard, we are not going to duplicate the data. The data is always with the private players' applications. And of course, all the data belong finally to the government, because a city or the government is the custodian of all the data. So we make a parallel connection, bring it to the IUDX. Our intention is, it is not a data warehouse. This is the only way you can actually share the data. Otherwise, if you can share the data otherwise by making, as you take the example of solid waste management, there will be traffic information, citizen grievances, waste locations, pickup locations, all kind of data will be there. These all are coming even from different players, even private players in the city. Now, if a private company, who is done in the Varanasi, wants to basically bring all the data, create the application, creating that application is also not big. In the current AI/ML era where we are in, things have become much more simple. But to do that, they would need to make agreements and MOUs and contractual agreements with all these 6 to 7 companies, and not going to happen. One. where the ULBs will say that, okay, I don't have time for all those things. First of all, data is such a protected resource. I cannot meddle with you. So this is not going to happen. Assume that they made it happen somehow. And still, this private player has to basically build this application by taking care of all the nuances of that particular interfaces of that vendor, and he will somehow make it operational in Varanasi. Now, if you take the application and go to Surat, it will not work because it is a different vendor. There are different applications and different formats. So IUDX will even convert the format into uniform format, means one such an application using these 8 data sets, solid waste optimization application works in Varanasi, the same application go and sit on an IUDX if it is deployed in Surat, that it will work seamlessly, not only in India, and that is what makes the private players stick. I can build one in Varanasi, I can take it to Surat, and I can even take it to maybe Mexico. So that is one. And urban land ULBs, if they say that, okay, I don't want IUDX, they do not have any other replacement platform, and the 7 contracts. And now if you ask, is it the only way? Today, if you look at for data exchange, and one challenge will come from all the cities is, I do not have, because the problem is this is a completely new technology. We are in a data era. They are not conversant with the data. Even though I share it to you, even though your platform is protecting the data, is it still sure? It's okay, I can share it to MoHUA, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. It is their platform. There's absolutely no challenge for any of the cities to share the data onto this platform because it is termed as a MoHUA platform and supported by METI and them. So then the question is, of course, are you sure that it will sit with the platform there only? It won't go accidentally also outside. So these are some of the concerns. I would say last 2 years we had been addressing it. And it is all basically a question of getting used to it, seeing that no such dangers have happened with the data. Nobody has hacked into the system. Security is guaranteed. And then ultimately the MoHUA platform, I would say we do not see major challenges. If it is done by a private player, any private player, you can say that it's a non-starter because that is the mindset and attitude in the city, that especially in the data era.
Thank you, Mr. Suresh.
Thank you.
I'll go to Mr. Rahul. Rahul, from the point of view of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, does it consider this program as a R&D initiative? 1. 2 is, how do you see the roadmap of the future roadmap of this program? As we talk about, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav 75 years, and talking about success initiatives, success projects of the ministries and their partners, including, let's say, Indian Institute of Science. So how do you define this project from the ministry point of view? Since you are also heading the smart city mission, I just want to hear from you. Can you just elaborate on this?
Thank you for asking this question. So whether it is an R&D initiative, it was an R&D initiative when we started with, but now what we are looking at is a production version. And this production version, which can be scaled up, not only in the urban domain, but also in the overall Indian landscape of, be it in agriculture or be it in any other government department, or basically, I should not talk about department because this is an exchange layer that can work seamlessly across all ecosystem stakeholders. So I would say across sectors. So it is not only an urban sector specific or focused exchange that we are talking about, but we are talking about an exchange that can be seamlessly adopted at any level and in any sector. Now, looking at the future roadmap of this program, it is fairly simple for us that this discussion on standardization, on development of dialogue with the standard development organizations like BIS, or for that matter with METI or the Niti Aayog, with the other government departments and ministries, so as to give them that confidence to bring their stakeholders onto this platform, is going to be a very, very important part. So if you look at it today, the biggest challenge that cities face is with regard to the whole idea of sharing data, because they have their own concerns with regard to confidentiality, with regard to the whole fear of data sharing. They don't want to share it. And that's why they don't want to put every data on the open data platform. And if you look at it today, we are talking about the high value data sets. And if you start talking about high value data sets, that goes counter to the whole talk of open data and the open data platform story. So how do you strike the right kind of balance on what data should be shared and through an access control mechanism? And effectively, if you look at the future roadmaps, and if we talk about from open data to data exchange, the future would be data monetization. And we are beginning to talk about data monetization, but we are not able to really capitalize on it because of a lack of a standardized data system that allows secure and access control exchange of data to take place. What stops my confidential information from getting leaked and being used by any other third party without a proper system of checks and balances, without proper standards in place? Those are the concerns that data exchange like the IUDX tries to address. So, of course, it is a very important part of the overall process. And as an outcome of this whole exchange platform development, what also gets developed is data standards, because these standards basically streamline the whole governance systems in cities and makes it just a bit more organized. So I think that's the way we are going to scale up this whole platform, not only in the urban sector, but across all sectors in the government.
What about this time frame? Is there any collaboration between ministry and for this project with the Indian Institute of Science? Do you see any time frame, 3 years, 5 years, or extending that period? Okay.
So right now, this is the second phase of implementation. The first phase was basically an R&D phase. The second phase, which is currently going on right now, is production development. And once this production development phase gets completed, the third phase would be the scale-up phase. And the scale-up phase should take up the various components of institutionalizing this whole management of the data exchange. And we will be proposing that. It is still in the proposal stage. It is not an approved program as yet, but yes, based on the learnings that have gone in from come out from your R&D phase and the production development phase, it will go and feed into the overall structure of the program that we are looking at. Because see, it is not going to work like a R&D effort or a small kind of pilot effort, which is limited to a few number of cities. When we are talking about scaling up, you require an organizational setup and you require a proper functioning mechanism. I think if you look at parallels in the NPCI model for the UPI, I think we will need to probably look at some of a similar kind of model for IUDX as well. But of course, the learnings from the production development phase will actually feed into that.
Thank you, Mr. Rahul. I have one final question to all the panelists. If you allow me, I'll speak. Dr. Inder, I mean, kind of profile that you bring to the table, normally people would love to make it a new unicorns in India and outside world, but you have chosen this project, IUDX. Of course, the reasons emotionally attached to country, giving back to society. Perhaps you want to prove that, yes, I can do something for the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. My question to you is, since we are talking about data governance, I'll just take a couple of examples of local government issues. For example, they want their taxes to be collected online. It could be property taxes, and they want to issue a license or a permission to a, let's say, a vendor online. And this is a revenue earning mechanism for the local government. Let's say a corporation or a municipality. So currently these processes are very manual. Not all are on the same standards as Mr. Rahul has mentioned. But however, this program that you have developed for data sharing will only cover the smart city related initiatives, which are basically smart roads, integrated command and control centers, like some smart parks, some let's say solar initiatives related, and also will you have some kind of plan to include all the demands or requirements of these local bodies that can be added into this program, and how much time it may take if you're going forward?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. Excellent question. And I think actually what Rahul said, alluded to the answer, which is really, we are expanding the footprint of IUDX and the applicability of IUDX in two different domains, in two ways, right? One is within the urban sector, right? There are many, many other applications and services that we can start delivering on top of the platform, because the core data is there, right? And I think one important thing, I mean, you mentioned, you talked about making a unicorn. Our core platform is open source, which means that we are doing this in such a way that we are contributing everything to the public domain, right? So you can actually go to our website and you can download the entire code. And the reason we are doing it is because we think that national infrastructure, right, should be something that everyone can share it, right? Everyone can share it. This cannot be proprietary. It cannot be something that is built by a particular company, no matter how benevolent that company is. You know, it is important that anything that is national infrastructure is something that is open source. But we encourage private companies to take what we have done and make their own products, right? I mean, there's nothing that prevents anyone from taking our code, making their own product, right? In fact, we would very much encourage that, right? We would also encourage them to build on top of our product, right? And they're already doing that. So we believe that we can actually, by doing what we are doing, is that we are looking actively at expanding to other sectors as well, right? So agriculture is a critical area, right? We see a lot of similar problems. Same thing we've done in urban. You know, yes, there are, you know, we cannot simply take IUDX and use it in agriculture, but we can take maybe 60% of what we have done in IUDX, you know, change the other 40% and make something which is an agricultural exchange, right? Agricultural exchange. Similarly, logistics, right? Industrial. There are many, many government sectors that we think we can play an important role in. And we really look forward to that. I mean, I see a lot of potential for what we have done, both in terms of, you know, public sector impact as well as private sector impact. Right?
Thank you, Dr. Inder Gopal. I'll go to Dr. Abhay. Your views on my question, if you can. Your thoughts on my question, a common question which I asked.
Yeah, I think, again, I don't have too much to add on top of what Inder is saying, but I think I would like to, again, reiterate this point that that definitely a lot of value can be created on top of the exchange that we have created. It's open source, but again, I think because it is done in this way, there's a lot of trust in this base layer, and then on top of it, I think there should be a lot of value which can be, which will be for the scale of our cities, which has to be done by private enterprises. And again, we look forward to seeing that kind of participation, to see that kind of ecosystems develop to solve the problems that our cities face today.
Over to Mr. Suresh, your thoughts.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So actually, the proliferation happens in two ways actually. One is, as you see, we are not talking about an urban problem or a healthcare problem or an industry problem or agriculture. We are talking about some digitized application is working in a government sector or a private sector or whatever it is, and serving a purpose. For example, solid waste management or traffic or parking. Now, and that basically IoT-fied sensor-based mechanism, even though that is latest, if you can consider this an N-1 technology now. And then now what we're saying is, now I am generating a good amount of data. There is this digital exhaust, which is actually will ultimately go waste, rather than that I am capturing it. And moment I have this data in the AI ML era, it gives me tremendous possibility to combine multiple data sets. And we cannot even say that, okay, this is an application and that is an application, because here it is not based on intelligence. It may be too limited, where the imagination actually can be huge amount of permutations and combinations. For example, solid waste optimization, and then I see that, okay, I do not want to pick up the waste today. For example, I am not at home, and then you come tomorrow, so that I don't keep it today. You don't have to basically come and bother. Any kind of plethora of applications can be thought of. That is from one way of proliferation point of view. Second thing is, If it is a very complex technology, then it is difficult for, we are already, some of the private players have already taken our open source and they are basically building their own exchange where they can basically even take it to countries like Dubai and all. So this is, since it's a simple technology and it has all the, everything what is needed for an exchange, anybody can take it. I would say even a small startup can take it. If they get an order for an exchange and an agriculture kind of an application, they can take it, build an application on top of it, and then have a exchange running and an application running. And the beauty would be, finally, what I would imagine is, after some time, there will be many exchanges, agri exchange, railway exchange, COVID exchange, all kind of exchanges people would have built, and there will be data in that exchange. Now, finally, at a national level or even at a global level, there can be an exchange of exchanges. Means I can take the data, there will be a bigger exchange. I can basically pull the data from all this, and then I can connect to that bigger exchange and then solve any kind of problem. So that way, I would see that there's a huge possibility the way the UPI index proliferated for this to proliferate. We are at a very sweet spot. Everything is right here, very simple, and I think that's the way forward.
Thank you, Suresh. Over to Rahul. The last question, Rahul. Do you see alignment of this program with MoHUA's ongoing initiatives like smart cities, Amrut, and of course your ministry also partly Jal Jeevan Mission responsibility, and some of the challenges that yearly you come out with the national ranking also. Can you see this alignment? The final word from you.
Definitely, there is a strong alignment, considering that most of the times we tend to work vertically, and wherein what this exchange is all about is a horizontal layer that cuts across all divisions. So, in fact, when we first came out with our data smart cities and eventually culminating into the National Urban Digital Mission that was announced last year in Feb, the whole idea was, let's create a common horizontal layer that everybody can use it, be it for capacity building, such as the National Urban Learning Platform, for data exchange, which is the Urban Data Exchange, or let us say even an urban data bank that might come out of this. And this is something which we are working on parallelly. So data IUDX, the whole program is supposed to actually be that common denominator across all ministries, across all departments, and across the entire urban ecosystem. And that's the whole idea. So our biggest efforts right now is on three things. One is the capacity building of all the stakeholders, especially in the government ecosystem, to really understand what this IUDX is all about. How does it align with their program, be it in Amrit, be it in SBM. Second is, of course, the communication that would need to go out to effectively capacitate the people, and the outreach efforts that need to be made. So I think we are trying to tackle these three key core issues from our end. And after that, probably we'll see the full scaling up of this program across all divisions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rahul. I sincerely thank Dr. Inder Gopal, Dr. Abhay Sharma, Mr. Suresh, Kumar, Mr. Rahul Kapoor, joining this discussion and sharing your insights with us. Thank you, Dr. Sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Right.
Thank you.